Hello, this is Morale Bernard with Study Coach UK channel Storytelling, and the story is Dracula, the continuation of the story of Dracula. And we have 2 more chapters and it will come to an end. And by the way, before I proceed, please subscribe to Study Coach UK. Please subscribe and please share. Thank you. Last words were, and so I have written it whilst we wait their turn or their return. And Mrs. Harker has written with her typewriter all since she brought the MS to us. So let me continue now. 29th October. This is written in the train from Varna to Galatz. Last night, we all assembled a little before the time of sunset. Each of us had done his work as well as he could, so far as thought and endeavour and opportunity go. We are prepared for the whole of our journey, and for our work when we get to Galatz. When the usual time came round, Mrs. Harker prepared herself for her hypnotic effort, and after a longer and more serious effort on the part of Van Helsing than has been usually necessary, she sank into the trance. Usually she speaks of a hint, but this time the professor had to ask the questions, and to ask them pretty resolutely before we could learn anything. At last, her answer came. I can see nothing. We are still. There are no waves lapping, but only a steady swirl of water softly running against the hawser. I can hear men's voices calling near and far, and the roll and creak of oars in the rowlocks. A gun is fired somewhere. The echo of it seems far away. There is tramping of feet overhead, and ropes and chains are dragged along. What is this? There's a gleam of light. I can feel the air blowing up on me. Here she stopped. She had risen, as if impulsively, from where she lay on the sofa, and raised both her hands palm upwards, as if lifting a weight. Van Helsing and I looked at each other with understanding. Quincy raised his eyebrows slightly and looked at her intently, whilst Harker's hand instinctively closed round the hilt of his curry. There was a long pause. We all knew that the time when she could speak was passing, but we felt that it was useless to say anything. Suddenly she sat up, and as she opened her eyes, said sweetly, "Would none of you like a cup of tea? You must all be so tired." We could only make her happy, and so acquiesced. She bustled off to get tea. When she had gone, Van Helsing said, "You see, my friends, he's close to land. He has left his earth chest, but he is yet to get on shore. In the night he may lie hidden somewhere, but if he be not carried on shore, or if the ship do not touch it, he cannot achieve the land. In such case he can, if it be in the night, change his form and can jump or fly on shore, as he did at Whitby. But if the day come before he get on shore, then, unless he be carried, he cannot escape. And if he be carried, then the customs men may discover what the box contain. Thus, in fine, if he escape not on shore tonight or before dawn, there will be the whole day lost him. We may then arrive in time. For if he escape not at night, we shall come on in daytime, boxed up and at our mercy. for he dare not be his true self, awake and visible, lest he be discovered. There was no more to be said, so we waited in patience until the dawn, at which time we might learn more from Mrs. Harker. Early this morning, we listened with breathless anxiety for her response in her trance. The hypnotic stage was even longer in coming than before. And when it came, the time remaining until full sunrise was so short that we began to despair. Van Heslind seemed to throw his whole soul into the effort. At last, in obedience to his will, she made reply. All is dark. I hear lapping water, level with me, and some creaking as of wood on wood. She paused, and the red sun shot up. We must wait till tonight. And so it is that we are travelling towards Galatz in an agony of expectation. We are due to arrive between 2 and 3 in the morning, but already at Bucharest. We are 3 hours late, so we cannot possibly get in till well after sunup. Thus we shall have 2 more hypnotic messages from Mrs. Harker. Either on both may possible throw more light on what is happening. Later, sunset has come and gone. Fortunately, it came at a time when there was no distraction, for had it occurred whilst we were at a station, we might not have secured the necessary calm and isolation. Mrs. Harker yielded to the hypnotic influence even less readily than this morning. I am in fear that her power of reading the Count's sensations may die away, just when we want it most. It seems to me that her imagination is beginning to work. While she has been in the trance hitherto, she has confined herself to the simplest of facts. If this goes on, it may ultimately mislead us. If I thought that the Count's power over her would die away equally with her power of knowledge, it would be a happy thought. But I am afraid that it may not be so. When she did speak, her words were enigmatical. Something is going out. I can feel it past me like a cold wind. I can hear far off confused sounds as of men talking in strange tongues, fierce falling water, and the howling of wolves. She stopped, and a shudder ran through her, increasing in intensity for a few seconds, till at the end she shook as though in a palsy. She said no more, even in answer to the professor's imperative questioning. When she woke from the trance, she was cold and exhausted and languid, but her mind was all alert. She could not remember anything, but asked what she had said. When she was told, she pondered over it deeply for a long time and in silence. 30th October, 7 a.m. We are near Galatz now, and I may not have time to write later. Sunrise this morning was anxiously looked for by us all. Knowing of the increasing difficulty of procuring the hypnotic trance, Van Hesselin began his passes earlier than usual. They produced no effect, however, until the regular time, when she yielded with a still greater difficulty, only a minute before the sun rose. The professor lost no time in his questioning. Her answer came with equal quickness. All is dark. I hear water swirling by, level with my ears, and the creaking of wood on wood. Cattle, low, far off. There is another sound, a queer one, like... She stopped and grew white, and whiter still. Go on, speak, I command you, said Van Helsing in an agonized voice. At the same time there was despair in his eyes, for the risen sun was reddening even Mrs. Harker's pale face. She opened her eyes, and we all started as she said, sweetly and seemingly, with the utmost unconcern, "Oh, Professor, why ask me to do what you know I can't? I don't remember anything." Then, seeing the look of amazement in our faces, she said, turning from one to the other with a troubled look, "What have I said? What have I done? I know nothing, only that I was lying here half asleep and heard you say, 'Go on, speak, I command you.' It seemed so funny to hear you order me about as if I were a bad child." "Oh, Madame Mina," he said sadly, "it is proof, if proof be needed, of how I love and honour you, when a word for your good, spoken most earnest than ever, can seem so strange because it is to order her whom I am proud to obey. The whistles are sounding. We are nearing Galatz. We are on fire with anxiety and eagerness." Mina Harker's Journal, 30th October. Mr. Morris took me to the hotel where our rooms had been ordered by telegraph, he being the one who could best be spared since he does not speak any foreign language. The forces were distributed much as they had been at Varna, except that Lord Godalming went to the vice-consul, as his rank might serve as an immediate guarantee of some sort to the official, we being in extreme hurry. Jonathan and the two doctors went to the shipping agent to learn particulars of the arrival of the Tsarina Catherine. Later, Lord Godalming has returned. The consul is away, and the vice-consul sick, so the routine work has been attended to by a clerk. He was very obliging, and offered to do anything in his power. Jonathan Harker's Journal, 30th October. At 9 o'clock, Dr. Van Helsing, Dr. Seward and I called on Messrs. Mackenzie and Stinkhoff, the agents of the London firm of Hapgood. They had received a wire from London in answer to Lord Godalming's telegraph request asking us to show them any civility in their power. They were more than kind and courteous, and took us at once on board the Tsarina Catherine, which lay at anchor out in the river harbour. There we saw the captain, Donaldson by name, who told us of his voyage. He said that in all his life he had never had so favourable a run. Man, he said, but it made us afraid, for we expect that we should have to pay for it with some rare piece of ill luck, so as to keep up the average. It's no canny to run frae London to the Black Sea with a wind ahint ye, as though the devil himself were bawling on your sail for his ain purpose. And at time we could not spare a thing. Gin, we were nigh a ship or a port or headland, a fog fell on us and travelled with us, till when after it had lifted, and we looked out, the deil a thing could we see. We ran by Gibraltar, without being able to signal, until we came to the Dardanelles, and had to wait to get our permit to pass. We never were within hail of aught. At first I inclined to slack off sail and beat about till the fog was lifted. But whiles I touched that if the devil is minded to get us into the Black Sea quick, he was like to do it whether we would or no. If we had a quick voyage, it would be no to our miscredit with the owners, or no hurt to our traffic. And the old mon, who had served his ain purpose, would be decently grateful to us for no hindering him. This mixture of simplicity and cunning, of superstition and commercial reasoning, aroused Van Hessling, who said, "My friend, what that devil is more clever than he is thought by some, and he know when he meet his match." The skipper was not displeased with the compliment and went on. When we got past the Bosphorus, the men began to grumble, some of them. The Romanians came and asked me to heave overboard a big box which had been put on board by a queer-looking old man just before we'd started for London. I'd seen them speer at the fellow and put out with their fingers when they saw him, to guard against the evil eye, man. But the superstition of foreigners is perfectly ridiculous. I sent them about their business pretty quick. But as just after a fog closed in on us, I felt a wee bit as they did know something, though I wouldn't say it was again the big box. Well, on we went, and as the fog didn't let up for 5 days, I just let the wind carry us. For if the devil wanted to get somewhere as well, he would fetch it up a reet. And if he didn't, well, we'd keep a sharp lookout anyhow. Sure enough, we had a fair way in deep water all the time. And 2 days ago, when the morning sun came through the fog, we found ourselves just in the river opposite Galatz. The Romanians were wild, and wanted me right or wrong to take out the box and fling it in the river. I had to agree with them about it would be a handspike, and when the last of them rose off the deck with his head in his hand, I had convinced them that, evil eye or no evil eye, the property and the trust of my owners were better in my hands than in the river Danube. They had, mind me, taken the box on the deck, ready to fling in. And as it was marked Galatz via Varna, I thought I'd let it lie till we discharge in the port and get rid of it altogether. We didn't do much clearing that day, and had to remain the night at anchor. But in the morning, bright and early, an hour before sunup, a man came aboard with an order written to him from England to receive a box marked for one Count Dracula. Sure enough, the matter was one ready to his hand. He had his papers and read, and glad I was to get rid of the darn thing, for I was beginning myself to feel uneasy at it. If the Dale did have any luggage aboard the ship, I'm thinking it was none either than that same. What was the name of the man who took it? Asked Dr. Van Hessling with restrained eagerness. I'll be telling you quick, he answered, and stepping down to his cabin produced a receipt signed Emanuel Hiddlesheim. Bergenstrasse 16 was the address. We found out that this was all the captain knew. So with thanks, we came away. We found Hiddlesheim in his office, a Hebrew of rather the Adelphi theatre type, with a nose like a sheep and a fez. His arguments were pointed with spacing, we doing the punctuation, and with a little bargaining he told us what he knew. This turned out to be simple but important. He had received a letter from Mr. Deville of London telling him to receive, if possible, before sunrise, so as to avoid customs, a box which would arrive at Galatz in the Tsarina Catherine. This he was to give in charge to a certain Petro Skinsky, who dealt with the Slovaks, who traded down the river to the port. He had been paid for his work by an English banknote, which had been duly cashed for gold at the Danube International Bank. When Skinsky had come to him, he had taken him to the ship and handed over the box so as to save porterage. That was all he knew. We then sought for Skinsky, but were unable to find him. One of his neighbours, who did not seem to bear him any affection, said that he had gone away 2 days before. No one knew whither. This was corroborated by his landlord, who had received by messenger the key of the house together with the rent due in English money. This had been between 10 and 11 o'clock last night. We were at a standstill again. Whilst we were talking, one came running and breathlessly gasped out that the body of Skinsky had been found inside the wall of the churchyard of St. Peter, and that the throat had been torn open as if by some wild animal. Though we had been speaking, which ran off to see the horror, the women crying out, "This is the work of a Slovak." We hurried away, lest we should have been in some way drawn into the affair, and so detained. As we came home, we could arrive at no definite conclusion. We were all convinced that the box was on its way, by water, to somewhere, but where that might be, we would have to discover. With heavy hearts we came home to the hotel, to Mina. When we met together, the first thing was to consult as to taking Mina again into our confidence. Things are getting desperate, and it is at least a chance, though a hazardous one. As a preliminary step, I was released from my promise to her. Mina Harker's journal. 30th October evening. They were so tired and worn out and dispirited that there was nothing to be done till they had some rest. So I asked them all to lie down for half an hour whilst I should enter everything up to the moment. I feel so grateful to the man who invented the traveller's typewriter and to Mr. Morris for getting this one for me. I should have felt quite astray doing the work if I had to write with a pen. It is all done. Poor dear. Dear Jonathan, what he must have suffered. What must he be suffering now? He lies on the sofa, hardly seeming to breathe, and his whole body appears in collapse. His brows are knit. His face is drawn with pain. Poor fellow. Maybe he's thinking, and I can see his face all wrinkled up with the concentration of his thoughts. Oh, if I could only help at all, I shall do what I can. I have asked Dr. Heslin, and he has got me all the papers that I have not yet seen. Whilst they were resting, I shall go over all carefully, and perhaps I may arrive at some conclusion. I shall try to follow the professor's example and think without prejudice on the facts before me. I do believe that under God's providence I have made a discovery. I shall get the maps and look over them. I am more than ever sure that I am right. My new conclusion is ready. So I shall get our party together and read it. They can judge it. It is well to be accurate, and every minute is precious. Mina Harker's memorandum. Ground of inquiry. Count Dracula's problem is to get back to his own place. He must be brought back by someone. This is evident, for had he power to move himself as he wished, he could go either as a man, or wolf, or bat, or in some other way. He evidently fears discovery or interference in the case of helplessness in which he must be confined, as he is between dawn and sunset in his wooden box. How is he to be taken? Here a process of exclusion may help us. By road, by rail, by water. By road. There are endless difficulties, especially in leaving the city. There are people, and people are curious and investigate. A hint, a summary, a doubt as to what might be in the box would destroy him. There are, or there may be, customs and octroi officers to pass. His pursuers might follow. This is his highest fear, and in order to prevent his being betrayed, he has repelled, so far as he can, even his victim, me. By rail. There is no one in charge of the box. It would have to take its chance of being delayed, and delay would be fatal, with enemies on the track. True, he might escape at night, but what would he be if left in a strange place with no refuge that he could fly to? This is not what he intends, and he does not mean to risk it. By water. Here is the safest way in one respect, but with most danger in another. On the water, he's powerless, except at night. Even then he can only summon fog and storm and snow, and his wolves. But were he wrecked, the living water would engulf him, helpless, and he would indeed be lost. He could have the vessel drive to land, but if it were on friendly land, wherein he was not free to move, his position would still be desperate. We know from the record that he was on the water, so what we have to do is to ascertain what water. The first thing is to realize exactly what he has done as yet. We may then get a light on what his later task is to be. Firstly, we must differentiate between what he did in London as part of his general plan of action, when he was pressed for moments and had to arrange as best he could. Secondly, we must see as well as we can sunrise it from the facts we know of, what he has done here. As to the first, he evidently intended to arrive at Galatz and sent invoice to Varna to deceive us, lest we should ascertain his means of exit from England. His immediate and sole purpose then was to escape. The proof of this is the letter of instruction sent to Emanuel Hiddlesheim to clear and take away the box before sunrise. There is also the instruction to Petrov Skinsky. These we must only guess at, but there must have been some letter or message since Skinsky came to Hiddlesheim. That so far his plans were successful, we know. The Tsarina Catherine made a phenomenally quick journey, so much so that the Captain Donelson's suspicions were aroused. But his superstition united with his cannonies played the Count's game for him, and he ran with his favouring wind through fogs, and all till he brought up blindfolded at Galatz. That the Count's arrangements were well made has been proven. Hiddlesheim cleared the box, took it off, and gave it to Skinsky. Skinsky took it, and here we lose the trail. We only know that the box is somewhere in the water, moving along. The customs and the octroi, if there be any, had been avoided. Now we come to what the Count must have done after his arrival on land at Galatz. The box was given to Skinsky before sunrise. At sunrise the Count could appear in his own form. Here we ask why Skinsky was chosen at all to aid in the work. In my husband's diary, Skinsky is mentioned as dealing with the Slovaks who trade down the river to the port, and the man's remark that the murder was the work of a Slovak showed the general feeling against his class. The Count wanted isolation. My surmise is this, that in London, the Count decided to get back to his castle by water as the most safe and secret way. He was brought from the castle by Sagani, and probably they delivered their cargo to Slovaks who took the boxes to Varna. For there they were shipped for London. Thus the Count had knowledge of the persons who could arrange the service. When the box was on land, before sunrise or after sunset, he came out from his box, met Skinsky, and instructed him what to do as to arranging the carriage of the box up some river. When this was done, and he knew that all was in train, he blotted out his traces, as he thought, by murdering his agent. Join me for the next video to find out what has happened to the Count. Join me, Morale Bernard. And by the way, please subscribe, Dracula. Join me for the next episode, the next video of Dracula. I'll see you then. Bye.